Hello there. So the title of my myth was Hymn to Aphrodite, or Hymn 5 by Homer. The title of my artwork was The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. It was painted in the mid-1400s, and I do apologize if I botch any names from this point on. I will do my best. So some important historical information that I found out about this myth is that the Homer actually adapted it from another Greek poet, and it was actually a woman. I believe her name was Sappho, and I guess she was one of the only female authors with written works left. So some of the original hymns that she wrote as well and poems that she wrote are still available to see today. The main difference that I found between her version of the Aphrodite love story slash poem and Homer's version is that Homer's version was more adventurous, and it had more action, I would say, and more almost spunk to it. And when I looked at summaries and interpretations of her version, I found that it was more loving and more full of love rather than lust. So that would be that for the historical context. And then the summary of this myth is that pretty much Aphrodite can win the love of almost anybody, is talking about in the first paragraph, besides Athena and a couple of other goddesses. I believe it would be, I think Hestia is one of them. And there is one more, and so the paragraphs talk about how Aphrodite's power is so strong besides these few other gods and goddesses who do not believe in her, I guess, like, seductive ways or methods, I would say. So as the story goes on, pretty much she falls in love with a mortal. I believe his name is Anchises. And so she disguises herself as a very noble woman. She dresses herself in fancy jewelry and fancy clothing and flowers and things like that. And she comes to him and she makes up a story about how she was taken and said that she was sent to marry this guy. And he instantly falls in love with her and says, if he pretty much says, if you really love me and if you really want to be a part of this family, we can consummate this right now. So they end up, making love on their bear furs and things like that, as I was reading in the paragraphs. And then Archisius, he ends up falling asleep. And she awakens before him, and she reveals her true self to him. So she reveals herself as Aphrodite. Ultimately, he reacts afraid, because mortals are not really supposed to lay with gods or immortal beings. And so he says, take pity on me, please. Don't tell Zeus, don't let them kill me, blah, blah, blah. She ultimately reassures him that he has nothing to fear, but that ultimately she is with child. And she tells him, pretty much, she sets it in line. She says, we're going to take care of this kid like this. I'm going to give them to the nymphs. They are neither immortal gods nor mortal humans. They're going to take care of the kid till he is 5, and then, or he or she, I'm not sure the gender of the child. And then they are going to bestow the child, they or I are going to bestow the child onto you when he is 5, he or she is 5. So pretty much, I believe that's pretty much the end of the story. She pretty much also explains that she is foreshamed as well because she has fallen in love with a mortal, so the other gods and goddesses are going to make fun of her. But yeah, pretty much the end of the story, she says, this is how we're going to do it, and I will bestow the child on you when it is 5. Otherwise, if you do not listen to me, if you try to seek me out, or if you try to tell all the other mortals about what happened between us, you will feel the wrath of the gods. So behave yourself, or something bad will happen to you, according to the rest of the gods and goddesses, the gods' wrath. So one of the comments that I found very interesting on my post was somebody named I don't want to say their name wrong. I think it's Tayez Alvadaro or Alvarado. And they commented about the actual symbolism in the image itself. They talked about the first thing that stood out to them was the cloth, was the woman wrapping, trying to clothe Aphrodite. And they pointed out that I guess being naked would be kind of shameful or unladylike, so that's why they are so quick to cover her. And I honestly didn't even think about that because I was so focused on a woman coming out of a shell that I didn't look at the surroundings of her. So that was very insightful, I thought, and it made me kind of question and think about, like, looking at the symbolism more behind the actual photo. Overall, as well, they talked about the flowers in the image, which I really thought was very insightful because flowers ultimately symbolize life and like rebirth and beauty. And so the fact that there are flowers around the painting was a very good noticing as well, I guess I would say. So that was a very insightful comment, I would say. In terms of how the artwork reflects the myth for me, just looking at the painting, Aphrodite is pictured very, I mean, she's nude, she has very long, luscious hair, everybody is rushing to her aid, like she's the center of attention, she's the center of the photo. Obviously the flowers that are in the background are going to add to that, the symbolism behind the flowers, that she is beautiful, she is young, she is youthful. Honestly, I just think that the fact that she's in the center of the photo really represents that she is the goddess of lust and love. And so everything surrounds her, and she is going to call everyone to her because of that beauty that she envelops. Honestly, that would be all I have to say about this whole thing. I hope this wasn't too long. Thank you for your patience.